This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world. You're listening to Place to Be Nation's Main Event, a roundtable experience looking at today's pro wrestling landscape. And now, here's your host, Scott Criscolo.
Place to Be Nation! Still alive? Maybe? Maybe not. Are you in jail? I'm sure Bix has your police report. Welcome to your home for everything modern day wrestling. Place to Be Nation's Main Event. I am your co-host, Scott Criscolo. Episode 99! And finally, a number where you can remember like more than two guys. The Mark Gastineau episode. I know one of our analysts would appreciate that one. Yeah, so here we go. We are one shy of the century mark, and we'll talk a little bit about our big century show, which will be in a couple of weeks. Of course, it is the post-mortem of the big weekend down in the French Quarter. So we got a lot to talk about tonight, so why don't we dive right in? Let's begin with my co-host. He's a co-host of the Kings of Sport, and he was kind of needling me into putting Nicholas in my top 100 WWE wrestlers of all time because he does have better work rate than AJ Styles, but we'll see. The Godfather, Nate Milton.
What is going on? It is the post-mortem on Wrestlemania. I'm glad to be here, Scotty, episode 99. I guess you could say this is the Warren Sapp episode, so I hope we are not sapped of energy from all the wrestling we watched over the past week. But I have a feeling we're in store for a pretty interesting show.
Yeah, because we're going to get into a lot of stuff tonight because we have an exemplary panel, including one that was down in the French Quarter. I wanted at least one that could give us an in-depth exclusive on what was going down in New Orleans. We'll introduce him last. Next up, of course, he is the producer, my co-producer here of the Main Event for you and I, Nate, also on the Place Be podcast. The Kraken's got 2 home runs, Mr. Jason Greenhouse, so all is well in New Yorkville because Aegon just hit a 2-run single, so we're winning now 2-1. So it's a good night, Greenie.
It is a very good night, and I appreciate the shout out to the head of the New York Sack Exchange, Mr. Mark Gastineau. But you know, I have to give a shout out to my number 99 right now, Mr. Aaron motherfucking all goddamn rise judge.
Chris Jordan's not on this show, so none of us care. No, I'm like,
hey,
I love you, Chris. Greenie, always a pleasure. Now, you know, I do treat rookies well, probably better than any other of the management at Place Be Nation. So I can't believe I have this guy on back-to-back weeks. Maybe I won't have him on again till Christmas, but no, he's awesome. He is one of the newbies here to Place Be Nation. As I mentioned on our last show, he'll be joining the Pop feed very soon. And it is Mr. Andy Atherton, Double A, the other Double A. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me back. You know, it's the second week of pledging, I guess.
Where's the fucking sandwich?
I'm sorry, sir.
Nate wanted a Cuban from Arby's.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. You know they've got the meat, so
yeah,
come on.
They've got.
Anyway,
that was said a lot at a karaoke bar on Sunday. Anyway,
oh boy, the Jason Taylor episode, is that a good one? Even though I'm a Giants fan.
There you go. No, that's fine. No, Jason Taylor's very good. That's another one. Brother Nate, you didn't fire 99 out. Any 99s you could think of?
We got Warren Sapp. We got Cortez Kennedy.
God, I thought he was 96. Wasn't he 96? Now I got to look that up. I could have sworn he was. Oh, I know one. God rest his soul. Jerome Brown. 99.
Yeah. And
I don't like honoring many Eagles, but
Jason Taylor. Jason
Taylor, as Mr. Atherton said. So there's a few 99s. And finally, joining us this evening, he was off the last couple weeks. Why? Because he was in the French Quarter. Him and our very, very good friend Todd Weber babysitting the miscreants in the French Quarter. The conscience of Place to Be Nation, although I don't know how much of his conscience came out this weekend, Mr. Steve Wille.
Indeed. We are, just like you and Nate said, we are in the post-mortem of WrestleMania, and we are in the post-mortem of my living body because I am still broken from all that wrestling this weekend.
Are you but telling it is me a pleasure you said you were broken, so you didn't drive up and down the French Quarter on a mower of lawn?
No, I did a lot of walking. I did a lot of meeting odd people and meeting wonderful people from Place to Be Nation. But, of course, it's a pleasure to be with the great ones on this panel, not to be confused with the other 99 that has not been mentioned, the great one, Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky, yes. I was going to say Dan Hampton.
That was my second choice. If you guys,
we do need to
still
mention
Gretzky.
The great one. We do need to mention the great one, of course.
When in doubt, the '85 Bears is my fallback.
Of course it is, and the '85 Oilers, because they won one of their few cups, I think, that year, or one of their many cups in the '80s. All right, gentlemen, good to have you on, Brother Nate. Before we get this show on the road, who is this fine gentleman that has strolled into the room here in Studio B? He actually brought a box of cigars, and he thinks it's still the sports lounge, but that's fine with me. Who do we got here?
Yes, Scotty, we got one more invite to the party, much like Braun Strowman looked out amongst the crowd in New Orleans and picked out a special young man. I brought a special young man to the program this week, making his main event debut. He is not only one of the hottest up-and-coming independent talents on the scene, not only is he somebody who calls New Orleans his home base, not only is he 1/3 of the Pipe Bomb radio team, along with myself and Felix Olmedo. But recently I found out he may or may not be my illegitimate son. It's kind of a Jason Jordan thing. So we still got to get that straightened out. But it is my pleasure to welcome to the main event the Aztec Warrior, Alex Cruz.
Oh, man, what an introduction, man. I truly appreciate that. I know we're still trying to figure out this whole dad thing, and once we find out who if you really are my father or not, I mean, it's going to be a little bit of a cussly battle. But, if you keep on sending presents, I'm going to stick around. And, it doesn't matter what legalities go through. I'm here for you.
It's like when is he going to start hugging your leg like Hornswoggle or?
Yeah, well, something like that.
Well, Alex, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you.
No, hey, I appreciate you guys having me. And I do want to let you guys know that, unlike Nicholas, I will not test positive for Flintstone's chewable vitamins. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's what Randy Orton thought he took in 2005. Anyway, Alex, it's a pleasure. Pleasure to have you on. We're about to get started, kind of get going over the weekend. So, again, guys, we'll start Friday night with the, obviously, Hall of Fame ceremony that took place at the Smoothie Yum or Yum Smoothie, whatever that Risha's house is called. Brother, actually, I know what, Alex, I'll start with you. Did you watch the Hall of Fame?
I sure did,
okay.
Every second of it.
Just very quickly, just one observation on the show in general.
Okay. One observation. It wasn't as long as last year's.
See, guys, short and to the point. That's exactly the answers I need. No, I'm only kidding.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things where, like, I felt like it definitely was ran a lot better compared to last year. That was practically a WrestleMania in itself last year with how long everything took. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed Team 3D. They were I think was that that could have been almost ex TNA type stuff. But the Dudley Boys, Team 3D, whichever one you want to call them, that was probably one of my favorite ones of the night. It was really entertaining and they were picking at each other the whole night, which I think it made it really cool. Ivory, she was phenomenal. I love the way she referenced it to her wedding and tied it all in at the end. It was very clever, well put together. And, Jarius J.J. Robertson is near and dear to my heart as a New Orleans native out here because we knew him before the WWE. He all started with a little punchline when he told one of the Panthers players to stay off his end zone. Don't you think about coming in my end zone kind of thing. And it blew up, and his story was just amazing. And then for the WWE to acknowledge him and recognize him was awesome because the kid is a fan at heart, and he all type of personality he had. And so I really, really enjoyed it.
Okay. Any thoughts, Steve? What'd you think of it? What'd you think overall?
Well, I was at other shows, so I didn't get to watch very much of it at all. I did like the way that Bully Ray ended up incorporating Hall of Fame into the Ring of Honor show pretty sneakily. And also in terms of Ivory, to build up of what Alex said, there's some people who thought, oh, great, they're just, going through the random women of the 90s. And I think it's important to remember that not only is she a really fun part of the Attitude Era, but her wrestling career goes back to Glow. She's not like just had that 3. She's been around for a good 20 years, and if anyone out of that group deserved it, it's her. And I, having met her a couple times, like doing some local stuff around here, she is a sweetheart. She's amazing with kids. She's a really good person with the fans. So I was really excited to see her in, and it doesn't surprise me at all that her speech was humorous and well thought out.
Any thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I loved Mark Henry's speech. I mean, his impassioned plea to Owen's widow. I mean, that brought tears to my eyes. I mean, and his son wearing the salmon jacket, represent the crowd. Gotta love that. And JJ, I mean, that he steals your heart every time that kid talks. He was just unbelievable, so charismatic, so much fun. Yeah, I thought it was a good ceremony. I mean, it ran a little long in the tooth at times, but it was fun. It was, give these men and women their due. They earned it, and it's good for them. I had a good time.
Yeah, I think my one take before I keep going around is this is let me get everybody else's thoughts and I'll give mine. Greenie, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, everybody who gave speeches they brought something different to the table, and that was really neat. Ivory might have stole the show for me. First off, she's 56 years old, and the shape that she is in is fantastic.
Yeah, she's
oh God,
I didn't even know that. Wow,
I love her too, because her energy just brightens up a room every time she speaks. Yeah. And the way that she incorporated like everything about it being her wedding and everything, that was tremendous. And Jeff Jarrett's speech had a little bit of everything. Really emotional, talking about Owen and doing his poem from the old days in Memphis when he started out, and then of course doing the With My Baby Tonight with Road Dogg, which we kind of knew was going to happen, and I'm glad it happened because it needed to happen. And a little bit of a sour note, but one thing I took away from it was the amount of complaining that I saw from people about how long it is. Look, this thing happens once a year. You should know what you're getting yourself into by watching it, okay? Yep. This show has nothing to do with the fans. Absolutely nothing. It is about those 7 or 8 people that are on that stage that are getting inducted. Yes, I'm talking to you, Kid Rock, also. These people have earned the right to be on that stage and talk as long as they want. Hillbilly Jim, for instance, went on for probably about 35, 40 minutes. And here's a guy who should have been in the Hall of Fame probably 6 or 7 years ago. All right. This is a guy who was probably the third most popular guy from late 84 until 87 next to Hogan and JYD. Okay, so if you're going to watch the Hall of Fame live, then just shut up. Watch it and shut up. If you don't like what you're seeing or hearing, or if it's too long for you, take your remote control, change the channel, and watch it later. But a lot of people have something called fear of missing out. They're afraid that they're going to miss something watching it, not watching it live. So they're not going to want to go back and watch it later on. They have to watch it live, and they're going to nitpick at all the small stuff. So quit being selfish, people. That night is not about you.
That's the key thing. I've always come away with that. It is not about us. And I, the biggest example for me was when I was honored to be at Madison Square Garden, along with you, Greenie, in 2013, and just the behavior of that crowd. And look, I'm a Northeasterner, so I'll defend this region of the country till the cows come home. But that was some of the behavior of some of the people at the Garden that night was utterly disgraceful. Booing Maria Menounos because her induction of Backlund. I mean, who the fuck do you think you are? Seriously. It's Maria Menounos. You'd be lucky to even stand next to her, much less talk to her. So half the wrestling fans in this world. So get over yourself. Nate, any thoughts?
Yeah, for me, see, and to quickly piggyback off of the point of it's too long. Like, I never really watched the Hall of Fame. I never really have watched it that night. I work it into my Sunday WrestleMania tradition. Like, it's something I put on and watch as I prepare for the big event. And if it runs too long, hey, it's for them, as was stated. But for me, the three biggest takeaways were Mark Henry, JJ, and Double J. So I guess that's 4 J's. Because Jarrett was the one, and we talked about this last week. Jarrett was the one I never thought would happen. And to see him get this rightfully deserved moment, it especially considering all the stuff that he's gone through, both out of his control and things that he's done to himself, it was good to see him get this moment. It's kind of like we talked about last week with Ben. This might not have been the class with the biggest headliners, but everybody, even Goldberg, everybody had a great moment, and it was a good celebration of the sport. So I thought, anybody that had any complaints or anything negative to say about it is missing the point of the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. I mean, all these things are on the network now. So if you don't feel like staying up till midnight on Friday night, guess what? You don't have to. But again, nobody wants to be left off the guest list at the party. So if you don't bitch, then you're irrelevant. We'll get more into that later because that's not the only the example of this is not just the Hall of Fame. There's others as well. Sounds like they're cleaning the Smoothie Yum Center now. So let us move on to Saturday night, which was of course NXT Takeover New Orleans. Just a quick recap. I know some of us didn't watch all of it, so we do have our inaugural NXT North American Champion, which is Adam Cole, baby. And I gotta give get a shout out to Ben Morse, because he called it. Adam Cole holds 2 belts right now because the Undisputed Era also won the Triple Threat Tag Match to retain their NXT Tag titles, and they won the Dusty Rhodes Trophy. As expected, Shayna Baszler is your women's champion. She beat Ember Moon by TKO, or technical submission. And we have I think it's the first time, well, the tags didn't change, but we do have a new NXT champion, which is Aleister Black, who defeated Andre de Almas. And then finally, in the unsanctioned match, which went, by the way, anybody have an idea how long the main event went? 37:06 was the main event, which is 6 minutes longer than the ladder match was. Johnny Gargano got Tommaso Ciampa to tap out. So Johnny remains in NXT, which is a good thing because I think he's better off than being in either roster right now because there's no room for him at the moment. So this is better for him. Steve, I know you probably didn't see it because you had other stuff going on this weekend that we'll discuss later. I'll say I caught the last 2 matches. I did not get a chance to watch the first 3. I thought the title match was really good. I think Almas is tremendous, and I think he'll stick around for a little bit longer. I think him and Black will have their rematch in June in Chicago. Then you'll see Almas, I think, come to the main roster. Johnny and Ciampa was a very interesting match, and I'll start with you, Andy. It was a different match than I think people expected. It was slow-paced. It was a lot of storytelling, a lot of psychology. A lot of people may have thought it was too slow. But that was the point. This was a mental thing about this match between the two of them. It was all about psyche more than about ability. You know what I'm saying? So I think the psychology of the match fit perfectly with what the storyline was about, if you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was a long time coming. So they had to take their time, tell the story of these two guys. They just couldn't go, 90 miles an hour the entire time. They had to tell a story. And the story was, Gargano finally, getting the best of Ciampa after months of Ciampa just, screwing him over. So, I mean, I thought it was a great match, probably close to the match of the weekend. Yeah. Possibly, and I thought, it was a great card altogether, though.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, called the Roddy Call turn. Excuse me.
You did. I'll give you props for that. But you're a rook, so I wasn't going to tell you. You're going to have to just suck it up and deal with it. No, you did. No, Roddy's in the era now as well.
Yeah, I kind of saw that coming. And then the ladder match was great. Everybody got there to do their little part. The Haas's, Dane, and Lars got to do their things. Ricochet. Oh my God, I've never really seen a match of his yet. and he was just doing that that top rope, shooting star press, like right in the beginning of the match. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
So in it, the Shayna, it was time for her to take the belt. I mean, Ember, passing out, and then it was just like NXT never, ceases to amaze. That's all.
What'd you think, Greeny?
Yeah, the one thing about takeovers is that they always seem to outdo themselves from the show prior to what they have. One thing I'll say is that with Ricochet, they're bringing him in as advertised. They're not sugarcoating anything. He's the Ricochet that people have got to know on the indie scenes. His bumping is just fucking fantastic. He's going to be a star there very, very soon. But obviously, the big thing coming out of it is that they have the rocket strapped to Adam Cole. He's going to be their franchise player for probably the next 6 months.
Yeah, and I think that was the key, and I think I think that's what Ben was getting at, saying that he'd hold both belts. I thought he was going to be Aleister Black's first challenger, but I don't know if that's the case at the moment. We'll see what happens, because I think Almas gets his rematch when they're in Chicago in June, and then we'll see. I think we'll see Cole after that because he's got to defend these other belts too. So, Alex, how much of Takeover did you watch? What'd you think?
Brother, I watched so much to the point where I had to have a bucket next to me to pick up all my drool because of the excitement. Let me go ahead and throw this out here before I even get into it.
Yep.
I hate the stereotype and the egos of some quote-unquote indie professional wrestlers or indie guys that you hear all the time. Hey, do you watch WWE? Do you watch this? No, I don't watch that stuff. How ignorant do you sound by saying you don't watch the product that if they went knocking on your door tomorrow and said, hey, we have a contract for you, you'd be jumping over that contract and that dude's nuts in a heartbeat. And the problem is that is the general rule of thumb. It's like saying, oh, hey, I'm into computers and technology, but I don't want to go work for corporate in the Apple or Microsoft offices, or I don't want to be up there as high as I can. You're full of shit. You're full of shit because check your ego at the door. Because guess what? It's okay to mark out. Because guess what? Inside, we're all marks.
Yep.
However you want to look at it. It's just some guys are just more ignorant than the other. And if you think you're too good for the big dog of the entire, wrestling profession, then you got another thing coming. But back to how much did I watch? I watched every second of it. I think if you want to put it in a terminology point of view, I don't say Gargano and Ciampa was a match. I say it was more of a fight because that's what they gave you. There was no lockups and chaining and your standard Gargano match. That was a fight. Was that quote-unquote match of the weekend? I would definitely say so. But then again, Gargano can wrestle a paper bag, and it's going to be a 5-star match. But was that, in my eyes, the match of the weekend? Hands down, top to bottom. And I'll touch on that in a second. I think match of the night, Saturday night, was definitely the ladder match. It was incredible. To touch on Ricochet, I've kept up with Ricochet from the Indies and even in Lucha Underground as Prince Puma. What we saw was a slightly held back version of Ricochet for that match only because I know what he's fully capable of, and they didn't want to showcase him completely unchained, unshackled, just in a ladder match. But what we did see was a good. It wasn't even like a appetizer. You got a good mouthful, to at least satisfy you. And then once it all starts, so once he gets his one-on-one matches, you're going to be blown away by the amount of ability and what he can do. But I thought that match was awesome. It was great. Now, I might get a little heat for this, but I've never been sold on Adam Cole, and I have never really been too sold on Adam Cole. I think he's a little overhyped in my eyes, but you know what? If that's what they want to do, then hey, I think right now he's in a good position to lead that ship in the direction with the Undisputed Era and whatnot. Shayna Baszler and Ember Moon, I agree earlier with the comment that I think it was time for Shayna to take the strap. And, kind of like Ember Moon now heading onto the main roster. It's great. She didn't she didn't lose by pinfall or tap out. She passed out. So they kept her really strong, and that's great going forward. I thought the tag match, it was good. The tag match was good. I'm not going to say it was one of the best that we've seen, but what saved that match was the heel turn at the end on Roddy's part, which I think was long overdue. And this is going to add another level of credibility to Roddy's career to help him succeed in the WWE. Because if he would just go straight babyface, he'd be falling off the radar so fast you wouldn't even know that he was there. The Almas match with Aleister Black, I thought was great. I thought it had that intensity. The falses in there were great. When you look at how Zelina Vega, threw herself in there numerous times, and you were just, oh man, this is about to end. I will tell you, I was popping the entire night, and when Almas put Aleister against the pole and did his finisher, knees to his head, bashed into the ring post, I was like, oh, that's it. I was like, he's done. That's what finished Gargano. No way. And when Black kicked out, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I think a cool feud is going to be, it's cool. I think it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be fun to watch. I don't think Aleister Black should have smiled or showed too much of his teeth. Like, hey, put some lip over it. You kind of took your toughness away. You kind of turned into a Care Bear for a second, but that's the conversation for another time. And then, the main event, you can't ask for a better match. I mean, Gargano and Ciampa, the story told was textbook. It was beyond what you can ask for in a match. Someone made the comment about it being kind of slow. I thought, like people saying it would be kind of slow. I don't find that it was slow, but if people think it was slow, you're stupid and you need to go reevaluate your opinions of wrestling, because it was a perfectly paced match. There was not one moment. Air hug right now. Air hug, definitely.
This is tremendous.
But hey, look, if I was there, yeah, definitely. But anyway, but yeah, it's just one of those things, man, when you look at it from start to finish. And what really, what got me is that when someone just said that the match was like 36 minutes long, I sat there and I was like, no way.
Yeah,
it felt like a 15-minute match.
37:06. Yep.
Yeah, 30. It was incredible. I was like, there's no way it took that long. I was so into it the entire time, I had no idea. Like, every part of it was a story. And the finish, I don't even think Hollywood writers could have written it better than what it did. They took a bit from the last time they wrestled, and they just sat down and we can't believe this. Ciampa goes for the cheap shot, duck, grab the brace, bam, Gargano escape. It was fantastic, fan-freaking-tastic. It was, I mean, that match, that's wrestling psychology and storytelling 101 at its finest, like Harvard version. It was immaculate. I mean, and unfortunately, NXT TakeOver was WrestleMania on WrestleMania weekend, because when you compare the two shows, there was no comparison. I hate to say it, but when you look at how many matches outshine the other ones, you're not going to, 2 years from now, you'll be talking about, man, hey, Ciampa and Gargano was a great match, or that ladder match. You talk about the U.S. title match, you won't even know half the matches on the card in WrestleMania even happened. And it is a little harsh, but hey, I know we'll get to Sunday in a second, but that's my opinion on the actual takeover itself. And I probably missed a match in there, but it might be kind of. I think I did.
No, you didn't. You got
No. Okay, good. Just making sure.
Cool. Incidentally, I don't know if I said the time, Alex. How long do you think the ladder match was? If Gargano and Ciampa was 37:06, how long do you think the ladder match was?
You actually did say, you said that it actually. I think it went like a minute longer. You said, or a minute shorter than the ladder match, or a minute longer.
It was 6 minutes. It was 31:24.
Oh wow!
So it was 6 minutes shorter. Yep. Shayna and Ember went 12:56.
Wonderful.
The three-way tag went 11:38, and Aleister and Almas went 18:30.
Okay. Yeah. Great. That's good.
Yeah. Nate, any thoughts?
Just to kind of echo what Alex was saying in terms of this being a better overall wrestling show than WrestleMania. I think, the WWE has found the ability to have their cake and eat it too, because WrestleMania is the main course. It's like this huge 12-course meal where every course might not be great, but you're getting a lot of something. But NXT is like this made-to-order meal made just for you, just for the hardcore fans. And they, to use another analogy, like WrestleMania is a blunt. WrestleMania is weed. It's more mainstream, but NXT you're mainlining. NXT you're sticking that right into your veins, and it's they have a way like
Jesus
they have
Christ,
the benefit of only being a 2-hour show, but in addition to that, the booking just makes sense. Like every decision that the characters make on the show makes sense, which is something that we can't always say about the main roster. So yeah, I thought that the ladder match was fantastic. I think Almas, again, like we were saying last week, continues to impress, continues to improve. And Shayna Baszler, to me, like I've always been a fan of Shayna's work, and I think now she's getting the character to go with what she can do in the ring. And I think, man, they got somebody good to kind of transition and build that women's division around now. So all in all, it was a good show, and I think NXT is set up for success going forward.
Yeah, I mean, they did all the decisions were correct, and now that we have this overflow of guys, because I mean, you got EC3 and you've got Ricochet and you've got the guys that were in that match, you'll spread a lot of stuff out. Now with the second belt, see, here was the thing. I think now that there's a secondary singles title, I think that a lot of guys can stick around longer, because I feel like we've had to deal with, like, oh, this guy won the NXT title, and the minute he loses, all right, he's done. He can move up to Raw or SmackDown. And I don't think we need to. I think we got to get out of that habit and start treating NXT as something where guys could stick around and have longer feuds, and we can last longer than a year, kind of thing. I don't think that's a problem, So, good show. Good show. Did I miss? Well, Steve, you and I didn't watch all of it. Do you have any thoughts, Steve, or should we just?
I mean, my quick thought, not to argue with Alex, but to just slightly disagree with in terms of Adam Cole.
No.
I think that Adam Cole is a great character. I think he's a great promo, but I do believe that, like, in the ring, he's not as solid as a lot of people believe that he is. So I can see them thinking of, like, in a Ring of Honor, that he is like a top guy. Here he's got and especially amongst the his peers in NXT, he might have to start bringing a little bit more in the ring to hold.
Wait, we agreed. We agreed. That's what I was saying too.
Okay.
Unless you heard me wrong. No, I'm on board. Adam Cole, overrated, baby. Yeah.
I think so. I love him as a character. Like, his promos are amazing. I love the Adam Cole baby, as most of you here know.
Steve, I've never thought I'd hear myself say this, but you're done talking for the rest of the night.
No.
No, I'm only kidding. All right, guys, let's just dive into Sunday, because I want to get a big hunk on this before we move on to. Then we'll take a break and we'll talk a little bit about Raw and SmackDown. Then, Steve, I want you to talk about yours and Mr. Weber, and who else was with you for this?
My buddy Brett.
Brett Carlson. Yes, Brett.
Yeah. Yep.
So you, Mr. Weber, Mr. Brett Carlson, I'm curious to hear. We all want to hear about your journey to the good stuff that nobody saw, that nobody in the mainstream saw. So I think that's good. All right, the pre-show. I got to say one thing about the pre-show for once on Sunday, because I've been to 3 now SummerSlam pre-shows at Barclays, particularly this past year. And it was kind of ridiculous because they have these great matches. And I argue, again, that the 2017 matches of the year was the New Day and the Usos on the pre-show. And there was like 400 people at Barclays, which was a crime. But I have to say, good job by WWE finally for timing out letting people in, because, I mean, Greeny, you and I were watching on TV. I mean, literally by like 5:15, the place was probably 2/3 full. And that's awesome. So good job by WWE to time it right. And so the place didn't look like a cavernous pit. When the 2 battle royals and the cruiser match goes on. All right, we let's go quickly through the 3 pre-show matches. Crazy Matt, Broken Matt, Woken Matt won the battle royal, and I was kind of hoping that Bray would show up dressed as IRS, but that didn't happen. So Matt won that, and that leads to what they did on Monday, and we'll get to that in a second. Naomi, your girl, brother Nate, my girl too, won the Women's Battle Royal, which was awesome. And then finally, Cedric Alexander, my man Cedric, won the Cruiserweight Championship Tournament, beating Mustafa Ali in a very good match. Alex, what are your thoughts on both those guys, quickly, Cedric and Mustafa?
We're going quickly because I know we got a lot to cover. Big fan of Cedric, not a fan of Mustafa. Mustafa's about as dry as a wall of paint. He's not the guy. I just don't. I never saw the hype. The coolest thing about him, since he's been at friggin' 205 Live, was his Sub-Zero outfit at Mania. Mm-hmm. Simple. I'm not a fan. But basically, I called it from the get-go. This whole tournament was a huge U-turn just to go back to the place where they started, was to put the belt on Cedric. Exactly. The first go-around that Enzo ended up blowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So it was a dragged-out, time-consuming, let's just make this happen and draw it out, and then we'll put the title on him. It's simple.
Yep,
simple.
I agree 100%. I agree with that, too. Brother Nate, what'd you think of the Women's Battle Royal?
It was what it was. I enjoyed some of the NXT call-ups. I wish that there were more surprises. Last week we talked about maybe Ivory hopping in for a spot or Medusa, and I think that could have been really cool, but we didn't go that route. I love the finish, though. I love that Bayley lost because she turned to the dark side a little bit and swerved Sasha. So and because of that, that's the reason she lost. And it almost reminded me of that old YouTube clip with the reporter stomping grapes, and then she tries to stomp real fast and falls off. And that's karma. That
was awesome.
Right. That's karma collects, and I think that we saw Bayley have this one moment where she wasn't the nice girl, and because of that, Naomi was able to capitalize, and Naomi needed a little bit of shine too, no pun intended. So yeah, I thought it wasn't as good as the Women's Rumble, but it was still pretty good, and I liked it better than the Men's Battle Royal.
Yeah, I didn't like the Men's Battle Royal was okay. All right, so Steve, you were in the building. When you first walked in, did you walk in before the pre started?
Yeah, we got inside about 4 o'clock, almost on the nose.
Okay.
And it was, I had never been to the Superdome before. I don't know if I want to be back. It's not the greatest place for a show, just in terms of the stadium being old, and walking in the aisles to get food in the bathroom was near impossible. That being said, I completely agree about them getting people into the building quicker. They had one giant gate that was impossible to get through, but if you just walked to the next gate, there was no one in line. So there was, it went really smoothly getting in. There was basically no wait to actually get to your seats. So I did note that too at the beginning of the Battle Royal. You had probably about 3/4 of the seats already filled, which looks great, as opposed to, Scott, some of the SummerSlams we went to where they were starting a show with the entire sections by the ring not even filled at all.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And it's a high building, right? It's not really sprawling. It's more like high or low. Not low.
Well, it's New Orleans, so yes, I do bet a lot of people there were high.
Yeah, that's true too. Correct. Yes, good point.
It is pretty high. The one thing about the Battle Royal, though, just the Women's Battle Royal, we weren't that far away, but no one had any idea that Naomi was even remotely involved. So there was that huge pop for Bayley throwing out Sasha, and then there was just this big question, wait, how did Naomi get there? Wasn't she thrown out a long time ago? So that didn't come across pretty well live.
Greeny, what did you think of Cedric and Ali? You know me, I'm a big Cedric guy, so I was pumped. But going forward with Cedric, where should they go with him? To this point?
Well, after watching 205 Live last night, it looks like it's going to be him and Buddy Murphy, which I am thrilled about. I am a huge Buddy Murphy fan, and going forward, I think him and Cedric are going to have some fantastic matches.
I agree. I think so too. All right, here is your result. Let's go through the results quick. There were 9 championships on the line, and then the 3, I guess, the non-title matches. So we had 9 title matches, and it was almost even. 4 retained, 5 changed. The Universal title did not change. We'll get to that in a minute. The WWE title did not change. We'll get to that in a minute. The SmackDown Women's title did not change, and the what was the other one that didn't change? I just counted them in my head. The IC. All right, so we have a new Intercontinental Champion, Seth Rollins. We have a new SmackDown Women's title, Charlotte, retained by Asuka. We'll get to that in a second. Jinder Mahal is your new U.S. champion. The Bludgeon Brothers are your new SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Nia Jax. She looked amazing, Nate, by the way. Is your new Raw Women's Champion. And, of course, Braun Strowman and Alex Cruz are your new Raw Tag Team Champions. Did you go to the bathroom, Alex? Because it was probably you he was looking for.
I did. I was hungry, and I wanted some more nachos, and, yeah, I could do it.
you missed your shot, kid.
You missed a shot, kid.
I was sitting right next to him. When I came back, they're like, hey, they just picked up the kid up. I was like, wait, the little girl who was sitting next to me? Yeah, I was like,
the little girl. All right. And then, of course, Daniel Bryan's return, and his team won. No turn by Shane. The Undertaker did come out, and he beat the shit out of John Cena in just under 3 minutes, which was probably a good thing. And then finally, the match that seems to be everybody's talking about, and that's Kurt and Ronda get the win. And as expected, the McMahon family did what they should have done. So no bitching there. And even though that match was although somebody will come up with some excuse, the match was too long, and well, screw you. All right. Let's see. Let's go around the horn. Steve. Let's talk about the IC triple threat quick. I thought it was a fantastic match. Has Seth kind of found some momentum here? Because he was pretty hot on Monday night on Raw. This was I think it was more needed for him than even for Finn to win this match, apparently. And I think they might have made the right move, giving the belt to him.
Well, it seemed like the big turnaround in terms of at least people we talk with online was that that's not a scramble match, but the gauntlet match, which he ended up being in over an hour. And it was like, oh, yeah, Seth Rollins, he's pretty good at the wrestling. And it's been the series with Finn Balor has been pretty great. So to really, when that match started, they could have had anybody win, and I think people would be happy. Mm-hmm. The Miz has been red hot. Finn Balor, whose entrance I loved, by the way, has been pretty hot. So I like matches going into a big card when it's pretty up in the air who's going to win. Right. So that way you can really get invested. Although we have some matches that went up the other way that were expected to go one way that didn't.
Right, exactly. Yep.
And people are complaining about those. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great choice for the opener after letting things cool off from the first 3 matches to really get the crowd into it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the best paced show, but boy, the first few matches really were quite a good blast of energy for the crowd.
Yep, I agree. And the match length for that was 15:30, so perfect length to open the show.
15 to 20 minutes for an opener with a lot of action.
Yep, exactly. Mr. Atherton, we can argue that Charlotte's entrance may be top 5 of all time. I mean, again, it's gonna be hard. It'll be hard forever to counter Rusev in the tank, but Charlotte coming out on the chair to her dad's theme brought a tear to my eye, and then and Asuka came in and she was a house of fire. Now that we know what because obviously in a vacuum, Andy, I'm sure a lot of people were kind of befuddled as to the result of that. Of course, Charlotte got Asuka to tap out and retain the title. Then, of course, we saw what happened Tuesday on SmackDown Live, and now that makes total sense. So,
yes.
Before we talk about Tuesday, though, at the time, what was your thoughts? Were you befuddled, angry?
I was. I saw the entrance for the most part, but I was actually driving at the time. We were celebrating my son's birthday, so happy birthday, Dylan. I'm 11. But we were listening in the car. He had the phone, and I was doing through the radio. But yeah, I was like, I heard it. I'm like, what the? I'm like, what's going on over there? He's like, Asuka's tapping. I'm like, what? but it's amazing. Was it 4 years ago was the last time they were in New Orleans? And Charlotte was one of Triple H's, one of the valets, I guess, her, Alexa, and Sasha. And now look where she was, just 4 short years later. But yeah, I mean, at the time I was surprised because I thought Asuka was going to hold it for a while. But knowing now what happens, it makes better sense that, it saved Asuka a little face. Amazing that they had Asuka tap and Ember pass out in the same weekend. So, but it was probably the correct decision at the time, and they showed us why.
Right, exactly. Nate, does it seem like they're putting Charlotte on a pedestal right now? Like, is she the face of the whole division and the whole company?
I mean, she's kind of been that. When you look at the last couple of years of Charlotte on the main roster, granted she had a higher profile on Raw, but even on SmackDown, like, she is the standard. And I think, like, I'm still a little bit unsure though in terms of the decision at WrestleMania, because the one thing that kind of gnaws in the back of my mind is you only get one chance to break a streak. And we kind of saw this with Charlotte when she had the pay-per-view streak. And they broke that, and it didn't really help. Who was it, Bayley, that broke the pay-per-view streak? Or was it Sasha?
No, it was Bayley.
Okay, and we see, like, that didn't really help Bayley a whole hell of a lot. I think it'll be different this time, though, because they have so much invested in Charlotte, because she's great in ring, she's great on the mic, and, that last name doesn't hurt. So I'm intrigued to see what they do going forward with her and Iconic now. I was kind of hoping that the match at Mania would lead to a Charlotte heel turn, which is kind of another reason I was hoping that she would lose, and then we get this great, kind of back and forth with her and Asuka for a few months. But I'm intrigued by what they set up on SmackDown on Tuesday night. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, we will see how it goes. Again, obviously we know what happened on Tuesday, which we'll get to in a minute, but it obviously made sense, and we'll get to that shortly. Jinder Mahal is your new U.S. champion. Alex, does it really matter?
Do we really have to cover this match?
Well, my man Bobby Roode didn't win a belt, which is a good thing because he may be something down the line. But Jinder won the. I wonder if they want him to be a champion so he could do some fancy pants thing in Saudi Arabia. I don't know. I know he does.
Yeah,
I know he's not from there, but
probably
something like that.
Vince is like, it's close enough.
They all
look at the globe.
Look at the globe. Look at that big piece of land. So anyway, we can move on.
Everything I've done, you got me a plaque.
Yeah.
Got me a plaque. My favorite moment of the year. It's on the same side of the map. U.S. title, good. I mean, it's a serviceable match. I had no high expectation for it whatsoever, and I mean, it delivered exactly what I thought it would deliver. So I mean, congrats, Jinder. I mean, a good body gets you a lot of places. So I mean, hey, I mean, it is what it is.
And clearly an enhanced body.
I forgot to warn you. I forgot to warn you before you came on here this week, Alex. The only rule on the main event is we can't speak ill. Well, the two rules: we can't speak ill of Jinder, and we can't speak ill of Triple H or Scotty. Will mute our mics.
That's it.
Hey, I said he had a great body. I just match as a whole, Hey,
yeah, well, his body slightly an enhanced body gets you a long way. I guess when you grow an extra 9 nipples, I guess that's what happens. But
who was more enhanced this weekend, him or EC3?
Oh, I know. Somebody's got to tell EC3 to fucking put some makeup on the back knee. Good grief. At least Jinder's skin color kind of hides that, sort of. But
right, yeah.
All right. So Jinder won the U.S. title, and that's nice. All right. This one we need to talk about.
There's a long soda line for that match for me.
Yes. It's like when I stood in line too long for a hot dog during the WLC match at Extreme Rules 14. But all right, we got to talk a lot about this match. Speaking of the game and Mrs. Game, obviously, the first thing we have to talk about is we come to the realization that Ronda. Who's chewing? I'm getting hungry. Who went to the nacho line and didn't tell me? No. All All right. We've come to the realization finally, guys, after listening to all of the crap and seeing the build and everything when she came out at the Rumble and everything, Ronda Rousey is not an attraction. Ronda is a worker. She's just like Brock, only not as big of a dick.
And better.
And yeah, well, that too. And obviously better cardio because her face doesn't look like a tomato 3 minutes into a match. Ronda
It's
works.
skin pigmentation, man.
Yes. Pasty only goes so far. Ronda is clearly not an attraction. She's an attraction, but she's not snooky. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. She's not a gimmick.
She's not a gimmick. She's going to work her ass off. She's not going to sign a contract. She's going to stand around and flash her boobs or wear flowery outfits. She's going to go out there. She's going to bust her ass. And that's exactly what she did. She did nothing wrong during this match. Nothing. Everybody in this match worked their ass off. And yeah, I'm going to give Stephanie her due. Stephanie did exactly what from the beginning of the match to the end of the match, Stephanie did everything right. She was baiting and she was baiting her into pulling her hair and doing all cheating shit and she acted like somebody who'd been there before. And Ronda, admittedly in the beginning, was outsmarted, and she's supposed to be outsmarted. That's the story. They taught, during the packages building to the match, Triple H and Stephanie pretty much said that Ronda's never been in this environment. We're going to show you all that she doesn't belong here. And in the first few minutes, they were good at it. And it worked itself, and finally we all got what we wanted, and Ronda got the armbar on and won the match, exactly as it was anticipated. There was no swerves, no bullshit. It was exactly what everybody should have seen. Greeny, anything about that match actually disappoint you at all? Did you come away from it? Was there anything out of that match that made you go, Or do you think
no,
right?
None. Well, besides the fact that I never want to see Stephanie ride a three-wheeler again.
That was too ballsy for me, even for me. But I think that was the point. Like, I also think it's almost like an inside rib that, come on, Steph, really, because I think they wanted us to say that exactly. You know what I'm saying?
But besides that, they did everything to protect Ronda. I'm not the biggest Triple H ball washer, but people can't say that he doesn't. but people can't say that Triple H did not help Ronda get through this match. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
Along with that, one thing I noticed too was the referee in this match, who was Drake Wirtz, who normally is down in NXT being the referee, but Ronda's been working with him at the PC. So he kind of played the Pat Patterson role in this match to make sure everything went nice and smooth. So, but at the end of the match, Ronda came out as the star that she is. Kurt was great. Stephanie was great. Hunter was great. It was the match of the night. It was just so much fun. So many good WrestleMania moments.
Agreed.
If anybody ever chuckles again, it's just going to be Alex and I on this fucking show. Understand?
I was just, speaking of ball washer, I was just laughing at the ball after saying that.
I'm thinking how I can use that for a Facebook status soon. Like ball washer. Start calling everybody that.
Steve, what was the mood in the crowd while this match was going on? Were people? Did you get a feeling of excitement? Were people exasperated? Like, what was the feeling in the building as the match was progressing?
It was probably the hottest positive crowd that for the whole show. I would think. I'm trying to just search through for my mind, except maybe like the intro of the show. But it just kept building and building and building. I thought initially going into the show, like, oh, this is going to be a shorter match because there's not much they can do with at least two of the people involved, maybe even three if you include Kurt in there, because you don't know what kind of health he has. Yeah. But it just kept building, and building, and you're waiting for that Ronda moment to happen where she snaps Steph's arm, and there were a couple, false starts to it, which, I mean, if I had to nitpick anything small, it was like at the end, like, feels like Ronda could have just easily sat back and snapped her arm. It's Stephanie McMahon. It's not Chris Cyborg. But I understand that they were trying to build towards the finish there and, get the crowd to pop as huge as it did. It was really fun to watch live. It was my favorite match to watch of that night. I really should go back, and there's a couple matches I need to go watch over again that were just kind of difficult to see live after a long show and a long weekend of professional wrestling. The only other disappointment I say would be Triple H and Steph's entrance, because as they rode out on motorcycles, it was pretty clear that Taker would not be coming out on a motorcycle later on.
True, exactly. That did give that away. Yep.
Can I say one thing about that match? About
Sure,
the Triple H?
Absolutely.
So to touch on what he was saying, because I was there as well. Everybody knew when they showed the graphic for it. Everybody was like, "Oh!" And I'm sure everybody on this conversation, everybody else was like, "Here we go. Let's see if she can hack it." All I want to say is this: that match went from this is going to go 50-50 to being one of the most sincere feeling matches of the entire night, because your emotion that was drawn out of that match was sincere. It wasn't like, oh, let me add to this or that. There was not a person in there. There was not one of those stupid ass smarks, as we call them. There was not a single smark that was trying to ruin that match, because the feeling was sincere and it was honest. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about it, because watching everybody, I was smile to smile, cheek to cheek. My wife was next to me, and she's like, oh my God, she couldn't believe it. And we were, because she was doing so good, everybody got behind her. It was a sincere moment. It was a true feeling, and it was honest. And that is what made it the match of the night, because a low expectation received 10 times more than what everybody expected, and it just blew the roof off the place, and it was all true, sincere, this is awesome, we're proud of you type feeling, and she got the reaction that the match truly deserved.
And they finally paid off. People complained, mine included, for Stephanie for so long, is that no one ever gets one over on her. And so that, the building up for that, approximately 20 minutes of the match, it's just this is someone who could do it. Yeah, not yet. This is someone who could do it. Finally. And it's just,
Stephanie sold beautifully. Her face,
absolutely.
She was fantastic.
And it is kind of, reminds me of the Austin Vince angle, in that people got behind Austin because it's it's us. It's everyday people, trying to take down the man. And here's the same thing. It's okay, someone who's super strong and who we can all, believe in and could put ourselves in their shoes, taking out the big bully. It's what wrestling is built upon.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, she was definitely channeling her old man.
Yeah. The sincere. I like the whole sincerity part. I agree with you, Alex, on that. I feel like it was a legit, and I think she was just so happy that the match didn't suck, and I think she was relieved because it didn't. She probably eventually, and I hate to say this because I don't want her to turn into one of these trophy case kind of things, but she is going to have to wear WWE. I can't. She's going to eventually have to change her gear. She can't dress like she does in UFC, because with UFC, it's a lot more grounded. You don't move around as much. There's not as much, obviously, stuff going on outside the octagon and that kind of thing. So wearing just tight shorts and a sports bra is not going to fly. She kept having to pull on it, and God only knows if there was ever any slips anywhere. So obviously she's gonna have to probably eventually put on wear something that's not as loose, I guess is the point.
That little skirt and what she wore, it satisfied me.
Oh yeah, she can wrestle. If she wrestles in that, I'm fine. That's true. I don't disagree with you there whatsoever. And I think that's because we don't think of Ronda that way, really. I think Ronda's very pretty. I'm not going to deny that. Yeah. But we don't think of her like that. We think of her as a fucking killing machine. So to have her come out with it, so obviously she did begin the process of WWEing herself to the point where she kind of working herself into that into that kind of character. So I thought it was fine. I thought it looked great. And the match was the match, and it actually still was the longest match of the night at 20 minutes and 40 seconds. A match later on in the night came very close, but not quite. So, Then we had the quick Bludgeon Brothers tag. We won't get that much into that. The Bludgeon Brothers are your new SmackDown Tag Team Champions. They beat the Usos and the New Day. Nate, do you think your boys, the New Day, are done as a group? You think this was their? You think that was their swan song?
I mean, this is something, Scotty, I've been calling for a while, where Big E in particular needs to be put on a path where he can be a single star, because this is somebody who has the potential to be a future world champion. And so I would like to see the group kind of amicably split, where, they're still friends and we don't need the big turn, but it's time for Big E to go out and do his own thing. It's time for, Kofi maybe to get one last big mid-card run. I could easily see Kofi leading your boy Jinder to some decent matches for that U.S. title. Give Kofi one last run in the spotlight. And for Xavier, I would love, and this is something I've been saying for a while, I would love to see what he could do with some of those cruiserweights on 205 Live, because the one complaint for a lot of those guys is, and Alex spoke to it, when talking about Ali, is the personality. And I think when Enzo screwed everything up, you lose a big personality. But with Xavier, it's like the best of both worlds. You get a personality, but you also get a personality that can wrestle, unlike Enzo. So I would love to see, the New Day kind of go their separate ways. But still, when we get the big cross-branded shows, whether it be SummerSlam or Rumble or something like that, where we get, that kind of acknowledgement of the past. But particularly for Big E, man, I think it's time for them to do something new with the group.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. The Usos, I think, and the Bludgeon Brothers will just have a good feud. And I'm sure they'll defend it. I'm sure it'll be just the two of them in Saudi Arabia. All right, last match before we go to break, and then we'll do the rest. I don't want to make this segment go too long. All right, so Cena comes out, or he came out earlier. I wish he had sat in that seat the whole time. That was pretty awesome, actually. Wants Taker, out comes Elias. Dicks him around, and then Cena beats the shit out of him, and then Cena walks up the ramp, thinks everything's done, he looks pissed off, and then all of a sudden, there we go. Gong hits, lights go out. We get a continuation of last year with the hat and the coat in the ring, and then it vanishes. There's the dead man, who didn't look too bad. I think he had extensions, but he didn't look too bad. And goes out, beats the shit out of Cena, beats him in less than 3 minutes. Andy, after all of that, we get this less than 3 minute beatdown. Was it all really worth it?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think Cena, did the right thing and, got the crap beat out of him. And I think he got like one offensive move in the entire time. Yeah. Undertaker looked great. If we can rebuild him, we have the technology, I guess, is working there. But it was, it was a fun squash, but, I thought it was week after week, Cena pleading and calling him out. And, I think the payoff wasn't really what we expected or what we should have gotten.
What do you think, Greeny? Is this just the beginning of something we'll see next year, or was this just to fill the card? And what do you think?
I think this was a prime example of what WrestleMania has become all about, and that's WrestleMania moments with Cena being out in the crowd, and then the referee whispering to him, and him going back and doing the thing with Elias, and then Taker finally coming out, and then everyone past couple of years bitching that Taker matches are too long, and then this one's 3 minutes, and they're like, oh, that's it? Well, yeah, that's what you want, right? But yeah, it's all about the moments, and that's exactly what that was.
Okay.
Yeah, and to kind of push back on Andy a little bit, I'd rather we got a 3 minute Taker match, which doesn't expose him too much, than a 15-minute match where we really start to see the age and the wear and tear on this dude's body. So like I could see how some fans are like, oh, that's all we get after this big build-up. But the crowd, and Steve can speak to this, and Alex too, but the crowd watching from home seemed like they enjoyed it. It seemed like they got what they needed. We got the smoke and mirrors, we got the lightning, we had Taker come out, and John Cena again, big match Johnny, proving to be one of the most unselfish top guys in the history of this company, because I can't see Hogan or Shawn Michaels or even your boy Triple H doing something like this when they were on top of the mountain.
I'll ask both you guys. Alex, I'll ask you first. Not just the intro, because everybody marks out to Taker's entrance like immediately. Even if you're a Taker hater, it's still pretty awesome. When all was said and done and the segment ended, how did it feel in the arena? Did it feel empty? And then Steve, I'll ask you. But what'd you think, Alex?
I don't know if it felt empty. It was just kind of like everybody was just kind of like, what? Like did that just happen? And everyone's like, oh, Cena got buried. I'm like, Cena did not get buried. That was not a burial.
Really?
Like, no, I do not. I look at that. So
buried
can look so many ways. The way I look at it, buried is if like, you want to know what buried is? Go watch what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks with AOP with these random tag teams. They're going to ring the bell. The tag teams are going to attempt to do something, and they're going to cut them off and destroy them. That is a burial. Cena fought. He stayed alive. It wasn't long, but since when did someone in recent history, and I'm not talking about Goldberg, Lesnar, since when has someone just lost fast? When was the last time someone lost fast? In UFC and all this other stuff, people can either go really long or they can just lose quickly. And the way I looked at this was Cena got a couple things in. He fought a little, but the match was never promoted. It wasn't built up. The build to the possibility was there. It wasn't a built up like rivalry / match. It was a is he going to show up kind of thing.
Right.
So when he did show up, it was kind of like, hey, Cena kind of put his foot in his mouth. He talked a big game, but he forgot. My mindset is he forgot what The Undertaker is truly capable of. And we just got to see John Cena unselfishly lose a match quickly to a man who everyone can see at the end of the day and be like, you know what? Okay, it was The Undertaker. That was not a burial. What's going to happen to Rusev might be a burial. But
literally and figuratively.
Yeah. But with all due respect, John Cena did not get buried. He lost fast. And, again, it's like if Lesnar and Roman would have went in there and Lesnar would have just started suplexing the shit out of Roman and then beat him with 5 straight F5s, that's a burial because Roman got no offense. But Cena just lost fast. And everybody at the end of the day was just like, what?
Right. What were your thoughts, Steve? Like your area of the building? Like, what was the general mood when everything ended?
I think people were really jacked to see The Undertaker's entrance. Just with the people that we were with specifically, we couldn't believe how amazing John Cena did because he literally carried that entire program on his back, with the exception of an Undertaker entrance and a couple quick moves. He got the whole program going with Taker just by sitting in the ring and standing in the ring and doing promos and calling him out. And then as what Alex said too, like earlier in the every time they would show him, he's just kind of mugging for the camera, making goofy ass faces, so that when Taker does come out, he is surprised. He just kind of stood there with his chin dropped, like, "Oh, what have I gotten myself into?"
Right.
So it made sense that he did, and so we were just amazed at how well he did getting that over for merely a chokeslam, a tombstone, pretty much, a bad jump off the top rope, which scared me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I was worried his knees were going to blow out as he hit the mat.
Yeah, me too.
And that entrance. And so, again, another like WrestleMania moment that John Cena's acting, although goofy at times, brought it through.
So all right, so there we go. Why don't we take a break? I feel like we're like right around the midpoint of the show, maybe a little slightly longer than the midpoint of the show. When we come back, we'll continue kind of analyzing Sunday night. Quick recap of what happened Monday and Tuesday on Raw and SmackDown, and then Steve and Alex, just want your thoughts on the weekend in general. I don't know what else you guys. Oh, I know what you did, Steve. I'm curious what else you did this weekend, Alex, around the Bourbon Street, and I know you live there, so it's probably not as touristy for you as it would be for, say, Steve. But and we'll talk a little about
for you it was WrestleMania weekend. For Alex, it was but a Tuesday.
It was but a Tuesday.
Right. Amen.
Scott, Nate, Steve, AA, Grainy, Alex, back at this.
Because
Yes.
Tremendous.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlayStation.com, and we offer those to you on 3 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the original Place to Be podcast, as well as Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows, as well as the Our Vantage Point podcast and Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver quick-hit pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Psychology is Dead, Puro Potpourri, Stacy and Elliot's Bogus Journey, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Letters from Center Stage, Space City, and NWA Classics On Demand Adventure, Through the Years, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Kayfabe, and much more. And on our popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTBN Dadcast, Go Home in a Box, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, Geek and Sassy, and Imaginary Stories podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to all of our feeds on iTunes, and while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when shopping online, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, TheHistoryOfWrestling.com, and Scott Keats' Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Welcome back to Place to Be Nation's main event episode number 99. So quick shout out to all of our listeners in San Diego. This is the Rayleigh Johnson episode of the program.
There we go.
Johnson, great Charger when your city had a team.
That is true. Many moons ago. Not really many moons, but seems like
but this is our episode. Look back at the biggest weekend in professional wrestling of the year, and we've got a murderer's row. We've got a crew of in-laws, outlaws, rustlers, hustlers, cutthroats, murderers, bounty hunters, desperados, mugs, pugs, thugs, nitwits, halfwits, dimwits, vipers, snipers, con men, and on and on. You really should watch Blazing Saddles this weekend. It's a classic.
God, tremendous.
Pardon me while I whip this out.
Excuse me while I whip this out. No. Gotta love God, rest in peace, Cleavon Little. Damn, he's good. And Gene Wilder, 80% of that fucking movie, which is tremendous.
Yep.
What's the
great
line?
Originally intended to be Richard Pryor when they first movie, which would have been even crazier.
Even more ridiculous. You use your tongue better than a $20 whore. I'm sure that was said a lot this weekend in New Orleans.
Mango only porn and game of life.
Yeah. Anyway, let's obviously the crew is myself, brother Nate, Steve Wille, Double A, Andy Atherton, the Rook, doing well again tonight. Jason Greenhouse and Alex Cruz making his debut here out of nowhere. Tremendous job. Good first segment, guys. All right. We left off with Taker Cena. The other big moment, and I know this is a big thing for Steve because it's one of his guys, but Daniel Bryan makes his big return to the quarter after the Miracle on Bourbon Street 4 years ago. Place went nuts. And he and Shane McMahon indeed defeated Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, so they will not go back to SmackDown, which, now that we think about it, probably makes good sense. I can't even begin to explain, Alex and Steve, what the building was like. I'm sure it was absolute chaos. Steve, you first. I mean, obviously one of the more anticipated moments / matches of the evening in the building, and I'm sure the energy level showed it.
Yeah, it actually, in a way, hurt the crowd's response to the actual match because there was so much love and energy spent during the exit that I was like, whew, got to calm myself down a little bit. I'm getting old. But, yeah, for me, like, it was literal goosebumps. As you know, Daniel Bryan is one of my favorite guys of all time. Mm-hmm. Just watching him for so many years. And I felt a little bit better seeing him come back and take on Owens and Zayn on the one SmackDown that he seemed to change up the way he would land each time. So I was like, okay, if anyone can figure this out to be safer, he can, as long as he doesn't let his adrenaline get the best of him. So I felt, whereas before I'm like, man, I don't know if I wanted to come back. I like him too much. He's got a family. I'm worried about his safety and his life. And I'm like, okay, this is what he wants to do. But there still was that little bit of tension, I think, in the room where is he going to be all right? And I think they expertly played that off by having Owens and Zayn just attack him and take him out at the beginning of the match.
Yes, and I think it added a lot to the build as well. What do you think, Alex, in the building? Did I say something wrong? He already left? Nate, what'd you do? He might have. I bet you put his mute on. All right. Well, we'll get back to Alex in a sec when he comes back. Andy, what did you think of while watching it, as like Greeny and Nate and I did? What was the energy level as a fan, just overall, maybe a little tempered by the fact that you were afraid, holy crap, one move and he's a vegetable?
You get worried about the guy because he generally comes off as a good guy. He's like, he loves the business. He just wants to, that's all he really wants to do is wrestle. And, it just permeates. Like, you just get engulfed in that whole yes movement. You just see a smile. And, you want to see the guy do good and you want to see great matches, but you don't want to see anybody risk their life at stuff. I mean, there's been so many sad stories of guys, having their careers ended. You look back like Draws and what's his face, Natty's husband. Like all those times, these guys, they're not Daniel Bryan, but still, you don't want to see somebody get injured in the ring, and there goes their livelihood, their life beyond the ring. So it was really a great moment just to see Daniel back on a big stage.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I thought he was fine. I think he understands what limitations he has. So I do feel like he's kind of changed his style a scoosh in the two matches we've seen of him Sunday and Tuesday. And he's working with people that are going to be protective of him. Guys you could trust. But Daniel Bryan's also not an idiot. I think he knows what it's kind of like Austin after the Owen pile driver. Steve changed his philosophy, and he still had 5-star matches after the injury, because you just know what your limitations are, and I think Daniel understands that. I don't think there's many that understand a wrestling anatomy better than him. He's always been a very cerebral, no pun intended, wrestler. So I think he gets it, which is one reason why I think you didn't see too much Shane in this match. I think we've seen more than enough Shane. You know what I mean, Nate? Like, we saw just enough Shane that we're okay. Like, it didn't go overboard. The one thing I got to give the McMahon children credit for Sunday is they both did the right thing in that aspect. Stephanie did more than enough to put Ronda over, and I think Shane did enough to make sure that Daniel had the spotlight pretty much on him, you know?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to Daniel Bryan, the only nitpick and the only slight nitpick I have with the match is I wish they wouldn't have gotten physical with him on SmackDown before this. Because I think there's something to keeping that first big bump he takes for WrestleMania. And, you know, you kind of play with people's emotions because, like Steve, you know, I was wondering going into this how much he could do. And then when they took the bumps on SmackDown and, you know, he was fine, I was like, okay, he's good to go. And so a part of me kind of wishes I didn't have that sense of reassurance going into the match. But everything about this match was enjoyable. I thought it was smart to take him out at the beginning and, you know, have Shane in there who was battling some level of discomfort with the diverticulitis and the hernia. Like, I don't know how much of that was, like, I don't know how severe it was, but, you know, he was in the hospital. So he wasn't at 100%. And for him to go out and do what he did, you know, it's I don't often give credit to the McMahons, but, you know, that was pretty gutsy of him. I love the coast-to-coast spot on Sammy. And then when Daniel Bryan got that tag, I was like, okay, we're going home, man, because there is no way that you bring Daniel Bryan back to have him lose. And so I thought the match played out well. It was one of my highlights of the show. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to see a turn here. Steve mentioned, you know, how the crowd might have not have been as up for the match as they were for the entrance. I think after the finish of this match, we see a distinct turn in the way the crowd responds to the rest of the show. So I thought this was a fun match, and unfortunately what comes later, the crowd doesn't seem as connected to.
I thought that after Ronda, but maybe it was during that one, during match 2. So we'll get more into Daniel Bryan in a few minutes because obviously we see him again later in the week. All right, Nate, floor is yours for your girl. As finally, after a lot of weird storyline machinations, Nia Jax is finally the Raw Women's Champion as she beat Alexa Bliss. The match was 10. By the way, 5:50, 2:45. The Daniels match was 15:25. By the way, good length.
Yeah.
The Nia match was 10:15. Pretty solid for her. I gotta say, Nate, I'm really impressed. She has completely changed me. I never hated her or anything, but I definitely have been opened my eyes to her changes. She's definitely changed her approach in the ring. She's not as lumbering. I mean, she's still Nia, but definitely a different type of wrestler. And definitely a different way of approaching the matches, and it showed on Sunday that she's a different wrestler now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and disagree with what Alex said earlier and what some of the other guys have said earlier when talking about the mixed tag match being the match of the night. This is my match of the night. This is my,
wow,
you know, I much like Alex, I had my little drool bucket next to me because when Nia came out with the outfit, I'm like, okay,
I am not touching that whatsoever.
Got your little legs out, girl. We see you this week. Okay, Nia. Okay.
He was hoping her pants were split.
Yeah, you're right. In terms of the way she's progressed, both in ring and on the mic, she's really improved this year, and I think Ben and I were talking about this. You can see she's lost a little bit of weight. Her conditioning in the ring is better. So I think it was the right call to put the belt on her. My only issue with this match is I think it went 5 minutes too long. I think that it needed to be more of a squash match and less of this kind of back and forth cat and mouse game with Alexa. I think that, you know, got the desired reaction because, again, talking about crowd response, just from looking at it at home, it felt like the crowd was into the entrances and they went to the finish. But the meat of the match, they weren't really too enthralled with. So I think maybe if you chop 5 minutes off of this match and just really have Nia go out there, take Mickey out, Alexa maybe gets in a little bit of offense, but once Nia gets going, she is unstoppable. I think if they had structured the match that way, it might have come across a little bit better. But all in all, for her first big singles match at WrestleMania, I thought she did a really good job.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, again, the length was 10:15. It probably could have been like 5.5. Greeny, what'd you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I agree 100% with Nia, like how far she's come. Like, you can see that fire and that desire in her eyes. And the program that they did to get here was kind of risky for 2018, doing the whole thing with her being different and being bold and everything. And I think that like doing this program and doing this storyline kind of helped her just be more comfortable in the ring too. Like, look, yeah, you know, I got a big bottom and I'm going to use it to beat this little girl's ass, and not being afraid to do shit like that.
Yeah.
So I not on the same level as Nate, but I love Nia right now.
Yeah, no, she's considering what may happen next Monday and Tuesday. Nia might end up playing a very important part in the way Raw's laid out in terms of the women's division from here on out. Because Ronda's always lingering. But the good thing about it is we don't really need Ronda. Like, I could see Ronda taking a breather from TV for a little bit. And kind of let her kind of refocus, because there's a lot of crap that we could still do with it. I mean, we still got Bayley and Sasha that's undecided and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's good for Nia right now to be able to be on top, not have Ronda kind of looking over her shoulder. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But I think Nia being champion is good and well deserved, because she's had to eat a lot of shit both in NXT and on the main roster. So it was a good moment for her. I was happy for her. But let me ask Alex and Steve. Was that Daniel match the tipping point? Like, could you tell even during this match that the crowd that most of you guys might have been a little flat at this point?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Because even I was like, unfortunately, I think it was right after that match where, like, I looked over and I told my wife, I was like, there's still like 5 matches left or whatever. Like,
yep. Like, I was counting them in my head. Which ones we have left here?
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those. It was like, so I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, the match before that was the first, was it the Usos match right before that match? Or... I couldn't remember.
Right before which match? The Nia match?
No, right before the right before the Nia match.
Was Daniel Bryan.
Was it? Okay,
yeah.
So the Usos match was before the Daniel Bryan match? No.
It was a few matches before. 2 matches before.
Two matches before. Jesus, was that early in the card? I couldn't remember.
Yep.
Well, anyway. Okay, well, yeah, since talking about the Nia part, yeah, that was absolutely the tipping point, because that match was not great. It was good, but good was the best we got for the rest of the night.
Right.
Because after that, I mean, oh, man. I mean, the Nicholas thing, yeah, it was cool, but, I mean, that match was not it wasn't wow. And then, yeah, I mean, it was, you were on the way down at that point. I mean, there was nothing else. Because that match was like, oh, it was good. You know, the story was cool. I mean, it wasn't extravagant, not a lot of cool moves. The big bump at the end, like, I'm a huge Alexa Bliss fan. I had my Alexa Bliss shirt on. That's my long lost wife, and you know, I know she knows that we're meant to be together, but and Alex is a much manlier name than Buddy, but anyway. I'm not going to hide right now. Look, let me tell you something, Nate. You were doing the Carlton, and I'm sitting there doing the backpack when Alexa was coming out. So I couldn't stop. But,
oh God.
But yeah, it was definitely the tip, man. That was it. After the show just kind of rolled downhill very slowly after, and you were just counting minutes.
All right, so on the heels of that comment, let's go to the next match, because I got a good theory about this match. AJ Styles retains WWE Championship in a match that was 20 minutes and 20 seconds. So it was the second longest match of the night, 20 seconds shorter than the Ronda match, over Shinsuke Nakamura. And then, of course, Nak with the heel turn. He did the Chris Jericho at 19 nut shot. I have a theory about this match, and I'm going to go around the horn on this one, because I'm going to steal it from my PIC, Mr. Azzaro, about pertaining to a match in a previous vault him and I did way back when. Back in the when him and I did the SummerSlam 2002 vault, vintage vault, which you can check on PlaceBeNation.com, the Place B podcast. Justin said that JR said that the Shawn Michaels Triple H street fight was great, and to me it's 5 stars, top 5 match of all time for me. But he said that they went, I don't want to say too far, but they put their foot on the gas more than they needed to. They could have put on a good match. They didn't have to put on a perfect match. Because that card, if everyone remembers, SummerSlam 02 was pretty loaded. So they didn't have to go 5 stars balls out because you had Rock Brock, you had you had a bunch of other great matches on that card that you didn't need that match to be the greatest thing ever. So they probably could have amped it down a bit and still had a great match instead of having to go balls out for what reason or another. I equate that theory to this match. Because in my opinion, I think Knock and AJ realized, obviously, as we saw at the end of the match and what we saw Tuesday on SmackDown, there's more to this than meets the eye. There's more, obviously, teeth, much more to this.
Yeah.
So I think the two of them said, listen, we don't need to go out here and give us, a Meltzer 7-star job here because we got more to come. So why don't we just put on a really good match and go from there? That's what I think they did. Because obviously, guys, 2 weeks ago, we talked about their match from Wrestle Kingdom 10 2 years earlier, which is tremendous. And that was not this match whatsoever. Was this match great? Nope. Yes, it was. Was this match 5 stars? No. But I don't think the two of them went out wanting to do 5 stars. I think the two of them went out there, tell the story, and move on. Because we got a lot more legs to go. Am I wrong on that, Alex?
Not at all. And you know what? To touch on that, it was one of those things where, no, they didn't do it. That was when it all made sense in the end of the match, because unfortunately I was sitting there telling my wife the entire time, I'm like, oh, this match is going to be great. The New Japan match was awesome. She looked at me after and she's like, it's kind of weird. She's like, this match really isn't all that good. And then when I saw the heel turn, I was like, this is what this needed. This is everything makes sense. They gave you now. Okay, so do I think the placement of this was off? Like, the way I look at it is WrestleMania is a place to give great matches. Not the place to like, hey, here's a good match and let's build a storyline at WrestleMania without like something big. But when Nakamura turned, I was like, this isn't going to be this isn't the great match. The great match is coming. Because if everybody remembers, AJ, from what I'm sure, I'm about 99%, AJ was a heel when he wrestled Nakamura the first go-around.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. That match was great because of that. And I know as a worker, it is so hard for baby matches to be great because there's no heat. You're just basically trying to outdo each other. And it's hard to tell a story. Mm-hmm. A baby match is like, oh, hey, who's better than the other one? Here, you counter me, I counter you. Let's get some cool moves in. Oh, you hit your big move. And it's back and forth. The great match is coming because now that Nakamura is the heel, when they square up again, and they're going to have, they might wrestle another couple times, but everyone's going to know this was the match. This is what we're working on. We had a watered-down New Japan match, yes, but why? Because the great match is coming. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's because now that there's a heel involved, it's going to make a great match. There's going to be heat. There's going to be emotion. There's going to be, that sense of urgency that I want to get my hands on him in revenge, and you're going to be pulling. Now it's going to make sense. Now this is going to work. The match is coming. Like, the great storm is coming. The match is coming.
I agree with you 1,000%. And I think another feud to me that equates that same theory is Triple H Batista. The match at WrestleMania 21 was The match at Backlash was pretty good, and then their Cell match Vengeance was fucking great. So it's I think it's the same thing. Greeny, the knock heel turn. I think it was genius. I think it was better for him to turn heel than AJ. We've already seen AJ as a heel, so we don't really need it at the moment. Because I think the knock mystery in North America could be even more enhanced when he pretty much tells you, I'm not going to tell you what I'm thinking anymore. You know?
Yep.
You know?
The knock heel turn was the gift that we didn't think we needed. It was absolutely perfect. And that's why last week, when we were previewing Mania, I wasn't like drooling over the fact of saying, Knock and AJ are going to tear the house down. I think that the IC match is going to be the match of the night. But because I knew that this feud was not going to be over.
Right.
This was going to be kind of like the appetizer for what's to be coming. And as we saw on SmackDown this week too, this feud is far from over. Good match, but there's going to be better coming down the road.
What do you think, Steve?
I have to admit I didn't watch much of this match in the middle part of it because it just got to the point in the weekend where I just wasn't feeling the best and just completely and utterly worn out. I think the whole point of the match was, as we've said, just to get to the end point that we didn't expect to happen. And you need surprises on a big show.
Right.
And this was a pretty big surprise. I would like to go back and watch this whole match for two reasons. One, I did miss the middle, but also, as Alex and I have been saying, this is kind of when the crowd started to wear out. And so usually I kind of overrate matches that I see live just because you get caught up in the atmosphere. And I think that I may have underrated the match. And plus you have to look at it as the complete package with the turn at the end too. And so I really think I need to go back and same with the main event as well and perhaps watch it muted as we'll get to and be able to look at them with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh butt at this point.
Right. Yeah, so I definitely think that that was the theory, that we're going to see much more out of this. And I love your analysis, Alex, being a worker, about Baby, because, obviously probably the standard bearer still to this day, and if I miss a match, please tell me, that the standard bearer for Baby is Hogan Warrior at 6. There's been other great ones, but that's the one that just comes into my head. But that match was laid out move for move. Literally move for move, like color forms, move for move. So more is to come from that, and I think. Yeah. Go ahead, Andy.
I was just gonna make a movie reference since I'm kind of a movie guy. Coming soon to the pop feed. Anyway, it was kind of like the match was like the first Iron Man movie, and the heel turn was when seeing Sam Jackson show up as Nick Fury at the end. Like, oh, this is what's coming. Okay, here we go. Let's turn it up right now.
Yeah, and a lot of things happen because of expectations. That colors perception, and it's like if I have a steak at the Sizzler, going back to our reference a couple episodes ago, Scott. If I have a steak If I have a 4-star steak at the Sizzler, that's a great steak. But if I go to Ruth's Chris and had that same 4-star steak, it's like, okay, it was good. It wasn't what I expected, though, because the expectation level was great. And I think Alex is on to something when he talks about the placement of this, because WrestleMania is the spot for that showcase match. And that's, to me, is the one thing this card lacked. We had some really good matches, but I don't think we ever had a great classic all-time match on this show. And I thought AJ and Knox could be that, but there's a bigger picture here. And I think that this heel turn is the best thing, not only for the story, but for Nakamura, because they have really struggled, in my opinion, of maintaining that momentum that he had in NXT as a baby on the main roster. And now that he's a heel, and you can actually have him speak in his native tongue because, for whatever reason, Vince McMahon thinks Japanese people are evil. But we're not going to go there.
Indeed.
I think
choppy your pee-pee.
I think he makes for a much more convincing heel than he did a babyface. And the only other thing I'd add to this is I missed my violin guy, but I think that the guitar, that needs to be a clue to his alignment. Violin entrance is for when he's a babyface. Rock guitar entrance is for when he's a heel. Because I loved the entrance at Mania.
She was awesome.
Now, if they bring Nina Strauss to every show to play out his theme, I'll be okay with that.
Oh, that's tremendous. Absolutely.
She was fucking awesome.
She was awesome.
Yes, she was great.
Well, she followed in the steps of her front man, who 31 WrestleManias ago was carrying Jake's Robert Snake, his actual snake. All right, so AJ retains the title and a big heel turn by knock. All right, let's obviously Braun and Nicholas are your tag team champions. We know what happened on Raw, so we'll have another. They had some eliminations on Monday, and there'll be another tag title match on the 26th. In is it 26th? No, hold on, 21st. No, wait, when's that show? 27th in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, real quick, Scott, on the tag match. I don't want to be here's how you could have made that better guy, but here's how you could have made that better. If and this is no shade on little Nicholas. Instead of looking out to the crowd and pulling Nicholas out, imagine the response to that crowd if Braun, instead of picking Nicholas out of the crowd, brought in recently minted Warrior Award recipient JJ Robertson.
Oh, that would have been pretty cool.
Oh, man.
That could have been amazing. And then you have the spot is JJ gets in the ring, he gets tagged in, and he just starts dancing, and Cesaro and Sheamus start dancing with him, and then JJ tags Braun in. Braun comes in, kills the guys. You got new tag champs. That to me was a missed opportunity.
That's good. I don't have a problem with that. That would have been pretty good. That would have been pretty good.
I thought Nicholas was cool, but I think you had a kid right there in the arena you could have used.
Yeah, I know. That's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe it was a health thing. Maybe maybe he couldn't. Maybe they were afraid of him getting hit or something. But anyway, that's not a bad theory there. Not a bad theory there. Sadly, we do have one match left. It's kind of like Taker versus Faker after Owen and Brett at SummerSlam '94. I wish we could skip this, but Brock Lesnar retains the Universal title in 1555. He beats the crap out of Roman Reigns again. We get the hard way bump and all the blood and everything. By this point, Steve, the building's baked at this point, right? And I'm saying this in the figurative sense, of course, not the literal sense, because we knew that at 5 o'clock. But at this point, you guys are cooked, I would say, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is my 31st hour of live wrestling this weekend. At this point, that is not an exaggeration. It is literally my 31st hour of pro wrestling for the weekend. And yeah, I'm cooked. And then I just got angry. Not at the match, but the crowd. I understand people didn't want Roman to win. Mm-hmm. And they went in with not as bad as Brock Goldberg, but they had this preconceived notion of what was going to happen, and they wanted to get themselves over and shit on it. And first of all, it didn't work because, hey, Brock won, and boy, they popped afterwards. They were all cheering. It was very, very interesting. But it was just... I saw some people online saying wasn't there like a petition, Scott, saying like let's walk out of Mania? It was a bunch of crap.
It is a bunch of crap.
No one's gonna actually do that.
Right.
But Alex mentioned the smarks before, and I can be I'm a mark. I have some smark in me, but I'm there to enjoy myself. I mean, I traveled from north to south to get to this. I paid good money to be there, and I wanted to enjoy it, and I couldn't enjoy it or even look at it clearly because I'm distracted by the weakest wave attempt in WrestleMania history, and someone getting arrested for some reason. I don't know what was going on there.
Maybe a beach ball.
Yeah. Were there any beach balls in your section, Steve?
No, because I would have popped it, and I'm not even joking. I'm
Good.
you know me, Scott. I'm not like that kind of person, but I would have popped it. It just there are people there who are paying very good money, yes, to let your opinions known, but they weren't interested in the match. They were interested in being jerks, and there are a lot of people there. There was an 8-year-old in front of us who, first of all, was an amazing trooper for sitting through that long of a show, and secondly, who was really wanted to watch it. And then you have like people swearing left and right, and he's rooting for Roman to win, of course, and I don't know. It just turns a lot of people off. and it turned me off. And again, like I said, with the AJ Knock match, I need to go back and watch this. I'm sure it was a typical kind of Brock match lately where he just, I noticed he did a lot of F5s. I did like the, bringing in some more different kinds of suplexes in instead of just the Germans over and over and over again. But I couldn't enjoy it or look at it through fairly due to the crowd. And I will go back and watch it, and I will put it on mute to just kind of be able to see it a little more clearly.
Need we say he almost wrestled like Scott Steiner? He looked blown up like Scott Steiner too. No. Andy, where do we go from here with Roman Reigns?
You got me. I mean, there's a lot of conflicting reports coming out. Read on like Bleacher Report and those other sites that what happened backstage when the call was made, because probably Roman was probably going to win at some point. But I mean, I think he's probably going to win the belt at the Greatest Royal Rumble.
Yep.
I mean, it makes who else could Brock drop it to at this point? Really? I mean, they've built anybody else up. He's put down everybody, Braun, Joe. I mean, the only person they haven't really fed to him yet or tried to go up against him is Finn, and I don't think Finn's there right now. So yeah, I think Roman's going to win the belt, and do we get that heel turn finally? I mean, your guess is as good as mine.
No, I can answer that for you. No,
definitely not. Yeah, so obviously the report that we all heard is that Brock was pissed off at something. Went backstage, started shouting at Vince. They were shouting back at each other, and for some reason, Brock threw the belt at. One report had Brock throwing the belt at Vince. Another one had him throwing against the wall. So was Roman supposed to win, and the hard way bleeding stopped it? I mean, is that what we're told? Like, I'm perplexed as to what the end game was supposed to be for that, but. Obviously, this show had a good start, a decent middle, and then kind of pooped out at the end. At the moment, I would consider it, me personally, I consider it a top 10 Mania. Watching it, I'd have to watch it again to decide if I would keep thinking that way. Greeny, is this a top 10 Mania?
Maybe like number 9 or number 10. I'd have to take a look back at a few of them. It very well could be. The only thing stopping it is the finish, which let me talk about that really quick. I think it was a business decision to have Brock go over. The reports about Brock flipping out on Vince, I think that's all bullshit. I think that's WWE feeding the sheets, stuff to try and get Brock over more as a heel and try and get some more baby sympathy for Roman. I think that Vince heard the crowd and knew that if Roman walked out of there with the belt, that he doesn't want to end his biggest show of the year with 75,000 people booing. So I think it was just a business decision to call the audible, do it that way, and that way Roman can get the belt in somewhere like Saudi Arabia, where they're probably not going to boo that guy.
No,
that's a good way to put it.
Cheered.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. Alex, how'd you feel when the show finally ended? Were you pretty cooked?
I was done. I was so done, and one of the we're talking about before, one of the things that Steve said, I'm going to slightly disagree. It's not so much of a disagreeing, but it's maybe like, do you think it was actually this versus the crowd just being, there was a few different scenarios I felt like. When you keep, it's like trying to keep a kid at the dinner table to finish their entire plate of food without them trying to get up and start getting really antsy and trying to go and play and watch TV or whatever it is. Right. That's how a lot of the crowd felt at the end of Mania. It was really long. And there was the best matches that everybody went Mania for have already passed. Mm-hmm. So at this point, you're just waiting for the show to end. Mm-hmm. Do I feel that the crowd was being rude? I don't know, because respectfully,
the beach balls made the main event, and I was having a blast watching them. And I was having a blast watching the security take them and pop them and getting the asshole chant. And, because...
That part was fun.
Yeah. And but it's one of those situations where, like, sometimes a kid throws temper tantrums because they're not getting enough attention, or they get bored with something, so that's why they're bad. And I feel that the crowd was getting really bored, and that's why they started misbehaving. I do have a report on why the guy got escorted out of Mania.
Yes.
Is because he ended up trying to move from the seat that he was in to a closer seat, and he got caught. And then they, I guess he started getting foul-mouthed, and they escorted him out. That's why they were doing the "You Deserve It" chants, etc. I had one of my buddies sitting close by that area.
Because that, like, when the entire crowd is chanting at you, like, oh yeah, clearly this guy did something pretty.
Yeah. But like all in all, dude, the match just didn't interest me. Like it's not that. And this is what I was gonna say. Is it the fact that could you blame the crowd, or was it just the match itself? I couldn't get into it. Like I was able to watch all the other matches, and but I was so distracted, and because nothing's catching my eye. I was like, oh, it's a typical Brock Lesnar match. And you know what? I'm actually going to defend Roman Reigns because I like Roman. Mm-hmm. Roman's up there for a reason. Yep, yes, does he get does he get force-fed down our throats? Yeah, it happens. But the guy shows up. He's an exceptional worker. Yep. He does very well. He's come a long way with his promos, and people hate him because why? No one can give me a real reason why they don't like Roman Reigns, minus the whole, because WWE tries to force feed him. Okay, well, what else? You say he sucks. I'm like, have you seen his moveset? He does a lot of things. He does them well. He's like, in a way, yes, like John Cena. Some of these guys don't have to be flippy. Notice that all the main eventers and all the main roster guys are not gymnasts. They're not doing all this crazy stuff. It's still a breed of the old school guys. Yep. So what makes me mad is Brock Lesnar, and I'm so infuriated. I'm so tired of not seeing the Universal title on fucking TV every week. Like AJ Styles has to bust his ass and compete on live shows and defending every week, all that stuff. And guess what? Brock Lesnar gets to come whenever he wants. And you know what? You can use that and throw that in there to try to give people peace of mind. But you know what? It pisses me off because Brock Lesnar, they owe him nothing, and he owes us nothing. But we as fans are being stripped of seeing the title every week or defended or a solid storyline with it. We don't need Brock Lesnar. They don't need him because he goes out there and he gives half-ass performances. That's the way it is. That is the way it is. They give him half-ass, he gives a half-ass match. They talk about Cena and Roman with 5 moves. Well, guess what? This asshole only has 3. 3. Freaking suplex.
Wow. I think I got to do a main event with Alex, Reich, and Dr. G and just talk about bashing Brock for like 3 hours. That'd be the greatest main event ever.
That was up from 2. Dude, that was up from 2 at Mania.
I'm so tired of it. So tired of it because it's the same shit every time. It's just, how's he going to start? Is he going to start with a suplex, a punch, a knee? It's all the same thing. And then everyone's going to dog Roman for it. Roman saved the match, but the match made no sense. Right. It was awful. And the crowd was chanting, "This is awful," because it was. Yep. It was just, what that's not a WrestleMania main event. Nothing special about it. Right. But people want to hate on Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has actually had some great matches.
Yes, he has.
Hey, with other people.
His 2 matches with AJ 2 years ago were fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely fantastic.
His stuff with Daniel Bryan, stuff with Braun. Over the past 18 months, Cena, he's had fantastic matches.
Yep.
The bell rings, man, and it's go time with him.
No, he takes it very seriously. Absolutely.
Yeah, he does. There's no such thing as a great Brock Lesnar match. You can't. It's just it's not happening, and you can't get it right now.
What was the last great one?
Probably the closest one is the one with Roman at 31.
Yeah, or maybe even
the
three-way with
Joe,
maybe the 3-way with him.
Joe and
Cena,
Braun?
him, Cena, and Seth at Rumble.
Royal Rumble, yeah.
But that's because you had 2 better workers than him in the ring. But so, because this year in Philly you had a triple threat with 2 other guys and it didn't really work out that well. All right.
Yep.
So Greeny, Andy, is this a top 10 Mania?
I agree with Greeny. It's like maybe 9 or 10 at best. I think it was like everybody's like, this is a stacked card, this is a loaded card, and then some of the, like you said, some of the matches didn't deliver up to the potential that they could have. I mean, the Brock, I'm done with Brock. I mean, if it wasn't for Heyman, it would be like I never want to see him again. Just take your ball and leave. Just go. But yeah, I think it was a very good Mania, bordering great.
Okay, Steve, top 10 Mania, or is it tough for you to? Or do you need to watch it on TV maybe to kind of help galvanize your thought? Or can
like I said, those last two matches I really got to rewatch. I thought the first, and there's another show that I can say the same thing to from the weekend. The first half of the Mania was amazing. And I do agree that, they didn't have to put Brock Roman at top. There were a couple other matches that you could have put at top.
Right.
You could have put the mixed tag at top, and no one would have a problem with it. Some people might say, "Oh, is this Triple H putting himself over?" But no, I mean, Ronda was the one that people were there to watch. It was her first match, and most over person on the card, except maybe Daniel.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So you could have easily done that. I think if they would have changed a couple things, changed the match order. I mean, I'm trying to think of some other Manias in general, and that's not my best suit right there. But I would think top 8, top 12, somewhere around there.
Vincent Kennedy McMahon is still alive, and he still writes the checks. So Roman was going on last, if he liked it or not. But
yeah, and I have no problem with Roman either. I thought he's been great this year.
I agree 100%.
And even last year, to answer what Alex said about people thinking that he's being, people saying, "Oh, he's being pushed down his throats." I think I agree with you. It's like a tired point that from really 3 years ago, and at this point, it's just groupthink. There's really nothing to show it, and if you want to get technical about it, he hasn't even been pushed down people's throat over the last year. He was like kind of upper mid card, doing like what belt was he fighting? He was fighting with Miz for a while, and
so the U.S. belt, he had the IC belt for a bit. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. He was in the right place at the right time. Nate, is top 10 Mania?
To quote the great American television personality Randy Jackson, that's going to be a no for me, dog.
Ooh.
I thought you were going to say Brock Lesnar was a little pitchy. Oh, never mind.
It's a word that pitchy.
A little bit too karaoke for me.
Yeah.
Yes. I think heading into the Daniel Bryan match, this was definitely top 10 for me. Something 5 and 7 heading into that match. But the second half of the show just underwhelmed. And so I think it was still a good show. I don't know if it's an all-time show, but I'd probably rank it anywhere from, 10 to 15. So it's not I didn't like the show. It's just, to me, it's not one of the all-time shows, but it was still a damn good show. And it also has a handicap that a lot of the shows that I'd have ranked above it didn't have to deal with, and that's, be a 5-6 hour show.
Right.
Because I think, I appreciate them getting as many people as they can on the card and getting everybody a payday, but, I thought that we could have trimmed maybe an hour off of this show and streamlined some things, got the pacing a little bit tighter, and it would have been a much better complete and total show. But as it was, we had a bunch of really cool moments, but the show as a whole to me just didn't crack that top 10 level for me.
Okay.
And here's a hot idea. Don't put him on the card and pay him anyway. Like a bonus.
Yeah.
You give him what you're going to pay him.
A bonus.
Yep.
Make the show better for everyone watching at home and there.
Yep.
And put on access, but do other stuff with them. I know they're all incredibly busy that week to begin with.
Exactly. Alex, this is a top 10 show.
I gotta say nope, not on that one. And Nate pretty much took the words out of my mouth on that one. I say between I wouldn't even say 10. I think it's between 11 and 15. There's just so many other Manias that were much better and had a little bit more quality in there. I mean, pretty much every Mania that had Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle in his prime, that's probably going to be a top 10 Mania. On top of the Taker, Michaels, Hogan, Rock, there's it is very easy to fill 10 Manias that will not include this one. At the end of the day, unfortunately, it was a glorified pay-per-view. It was like to me, this would have been a great SummerSlam card, but not a WrestleMania card. So yeah, definitely not a top 10 for me.
Okay. All right. So very quickly, let's go over what happened on Raw and SmackDown. Obviously, the big thing is the debuts and the big surprises. On Raw, we had the return of Jeff Hardy. We had the return of Samoa Joe. Of course, the big one for me, and Nate knows I was pumped about this, we see the return of Bobby Lashley. I was just happy to see. Lashley just looks different. There's a confidence about him, but a weary veteran look about him. Not like that doe-eyed, immature look that he was in 2007.
Well, he's been a top guy, and I think that's the big difference. Like, in his first run with the WWE, he was pushed like a top guy, but he wasn't. And I think TNA, Impact Wrestling, is not nearly as big as the WWE or even ROH, some would argue. But being the top guy of any company, you have to be somebody dependable. You have to be somebody that has an air of confidence and professionalism. And I think, the MMA stuff helped too. So I'm interested to see how these WWE fans react to kind of this new Lashley that has been doing some really good work the last 3 years or so.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree too. And I think so. So he debuted. Authors of Pain debuted. Any I'm missing? Greedy. Anything else I'm missing debut wise? Monday.
No Way Jose. Did you mention him?
Oh, No Way Jose. I like No Way Jose.
No Way Jose.
That's a big Rotella guy. No Way Jose. He likes him because he wishes he had his hair.
No Way Jose. The Latino Adam Rose.
No Way Jose. He wishes. Then on
Ember.
Oh, Ember Moon debuted, which I'm pumped about, as you are, Nate. Very pumped. I love Ember. All right, so on Tuesday, of course, we had a great AJ Daniel Bryan match, which of course blew the roof off. Have they wrestled before?
Yes.
And Ring of Honor.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember when? Probably like 05 probably.
05, 06. 05, 06 sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'll have to find that. Maybe it's because I have the first couple of years of those TNA, those Ring of Honor year 1, year 2, so maybe they're on those. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, the big thing that happened on Smack, besides Knock looking awesome in that weird kind of like bulletproof vest thing he had on, which was pretty heel sweet. Of course, the big thing that happened on SmackDown, after 287 days, I think the number was, Carmella finally cashed in her Money in the Bank, beat Charlotte after the debuting iconic, the fucking awesome Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. And Carmella is your champion. So now it makes sense why Charlotte retained the title over Asuka Sunday, because you have Asuka's streak end on a cash-in. You talking about fucking buildings burning to the ground. That would have been ludicrous. So now you know why. So now it actually kind of makes creative sense why Charlotte won Sunday, because you're not going to have Asuka win the title in a big moment and then have her, and then have... They obviously wanted to finally get the briefcase off Carmella and move on. I have a feeling they'll wrestle... Carmella and Charlotte will probably wrestle at Saudi Arabia. Carmella will probably win by like DQ, and then Charlotte will probably kick the shit out of her at Backlash. So that's probably what's going to happen.
Are they allowed to wrestle there? Steve would know this. I was going to say, are the women allowed to wrestle in Saudi Arabia?
Well, didn't they wrestle remember Sasha and Alexa wrestled? They just have to cover all their skin, right?
I thought that was in, I think that was in...
Yeah, different country. It's
that was in UAE or
different rules.
Right?
How am I the expert on Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, completely.
You're a world traveler, Steve Wille.
I could have sworn there's women's matches on this card.
No, they're not going to have any.
Oh, no, there isn't. Oh, my bad.
I don't even know if there's women allowed to travel.
Scotty's using that Vince McMahon map. They're close enough.
Yeah, really, come on. It's all dirt anyway. Let's just make it a parking lot.
Dirt.
Same side of the globe.
Let's just bomb it and make it the Hall of Fame building.
Tell Rikishi to get his Sultan outfit ready.
Cover those ass cheeks.
All right. So, what other surprise did we have Tuesday? Was there anything else? That match, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, the Carmella cash-in.
They changed the name from Iconic to The Iconics.
The Iconics, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it, right? Was nothing else on Tuesday? No, right? I think that was everything. All right.
Oh, we had Paige. Paige announced as the
Paige the GM.
Yes, Paige.
GM,
Paige is the GM. Yes, Paige is the GM. So, because she can't wrestle anymore. She's got the same neck and back problems. All right, we're not going to get totally into Raw and SmackDown now because obviously next week is the big shakeup. So we're not going to get into anything creative because it may make no fucking sense by next week. So to finish things up, Steve, you, as you said, you had 97 hours of wrestling this weekend. Give us some of the highlights or go through the whole itinerary of what you and Todd Weber and our man Brett Carlson saw this weekend that maybe kind of went under the radar of indie cards this weekend. What did you see and what did you any good highlights?
Yeah, the first 2 days we were at the Pontchartrain Center out in Kenner, Louisiana, which is a suburb, I believe, right, Alex, of New Orleans.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. And we went to most of the WWN shows. We saw Matt Riddle's Bloodsport, which if you want to see some original wrestling programming, it was put on by Matt Riddle, booked by Matt Riddle, and it was a no-rope, kind of shoot-style-y card where you can only win by knockout or submission, and matches were all around 10 minutes. And so it was really fun if you want to check out something that's completely different from what you're normal seeing. And then we also saw Evolve 102, Evolve 103, the first Progress show, and the WWN Super show.
Okay.
I would really go out of the way to see the Matt Riddle, Zack Sabre Jr. match from Evolve 102.
Zack Sabre.
Basically any of the Matt Riddle matches. I mean, that guy was the MVP of the weekend for me. It was my first time seeing Walter, who's got a big buzz to him out of Austria, and he throws the absolute sickest chops that I've ever seen in my life. And I have not seen this one because a show that starts after midnight is too hard for this 42-year-old man. And but he had a match with Pierre-Carl Ouellet, the former Quebecer, that supposedly was amazing. Shout out to our boy Chad Campbell for watching that one and giving me the heads up on that. And Will Ospreay, I got to give some love to because I think we might want to watch his match with Marty Scurll for our New Japan kind of rewatch stuff because he damn near killed himself about a week before this show doing a Spanish fly off the apron, landing on his freaking head on the floor. And he wasn't going to come. He was, originally told not to, but he decided to come anyways because he had a few matches, and he was a wreck. He had his shoulder and neck completely kinesiotaped up. He had all that cupping stuff on his back, anything to make it work. And he had a couple of okay matches, but again, Matt Riddle had probably the best match the weekend that I saw at the Super Show, and teased a lot of stuff. And the guy went out of his way. He also made a lot of money. I'll give him that as well. He was selling shirts like nobody's business. Went out of his way to just be kind of a cool guy. We saw him. We stayed at the same hotel as the WWN people. He gave us a nice discount for buying the tickets.
Nice.
And we saw him after that show, and the guy couldn't even get his shirt on. He was with his girlfriend, who's also a wrestler, and kind of went up in the elevator with them. And everyone was kind of concerned for him, and he just holding his arm at the side of his body, wasn't really even lifting him up. We saw him the next morning at breakfast, and he looked just as bad. Looked like he went out like on a 3-night bender, but there was no way he was drinking an ounce. So shout out to him. Also saw the Ring of Honor show on Sunday, and I think that we might want to spend more time on that another time because it was very similar to WrestleMania in that they tried to do too much. And Bully Ray says at the beginning of the Ring of Honor shows, no, all thriller, no filler. There was a lot of filler, and some great matches. I got to meet Kota Ibushi, who's kind of like my, I say I'm a mark and I'm proud of it, but big time mark for Kota Ibushi. So he had a great match with Adam Page, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but he showed he can step up. They had a great ladder match if you're in a kind of car crash matches with the Bucks and the Bucks and Flip Wilson against
Flip Gordon.
Yeah. Against SoCal Uncensored.
Wilson.
Yeah, Flip Wilson.
Was the valet Geraldine?
I would
That's a hell of a card.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest.
And in the main event, we have
Al Jolson in the main event.
Well, speaking of Supercard of Honor, Dalton Castle did retain the Ring of Honor World Title, beating Marty Scurll. And then Cody,
hell of a match if they didn't go 5.5 hours.
No,
because they did not do him any favors by putting that on after Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes and the big ladder match, and it was basically the same as Mania. It was a dead crowd, and that's why I struggled at Mania too. 5.5 hour show that day, and then I think a 12-hour day of wrestling, and then WrestleMania the next night, and it was going on against NXT as well, and it's just a couple of bad choices. Ring of Honor used to put on these 6-hour shows back in the day when Gabe Sapolsky was booking, and it burned a lot of people out. And the irony was that the Evolve shows for like a nice 2.5 hours.
Right.
And Ring of Honor had been doing 3-hour shows, but for some reason they did a 5.5 hour one and with a long intermission, and it just killed everyone the second half.
Yeah. Well, here are the match times. Kelly Klein, well, two of them were on the pre-show. Kelly Klein and Mayu Iwatani went 9:02. Sumi Saki, is it Sakai? Sakai?
Sakai.
Sumi Sakai defeated Tennille Dashwood. We all know who that is. That is, of course, the former Emma. That went 7:57. And then the main card, Chucky T beat Jonathan Gresham at 8:33. Punishment Martinez beat what?
That was a fun match.
Oh, okay. I thought I said Gresham wrong.
No,
I at least get those right. Kota Ibushi beat Hangman Page at 14:36. And then Sumi Sakai won the Women of Honor title in 7:38 over Klein. As you said, SoCal Censored won the 6-man in 24:08. The Briscoes beat Jay Lethal and Tanahashi for the tag titles, retained them in 1939. Silas Young beat Kenny King to win the television title in a last man standing match at 16:04. Cody beat Kenny Omega. Steve, take a shot in the dark. How long do you think it was?
God, a half year of my life.
Pretty close.
Yeah, it was like 40 minutes, I'm thinking.
37:15.
Yeah, it was really long.
And then Dalton Castle beat Marty Scurll. How long do you think that was?
Like 25 to 30?
31:37. So the last two matches were over an hour.
Yeah, the Cody Omega match was a little disappointing, and part of it was that Omega will bring out these big moves in Japan, and Omega's a great storyteller, Cody's a great storyteller, but Cody just can't wrestle that kind of match. It feels can't, like they did like reverse Hurricane Ranas and stuff, and Cody's just not used to that, and
no,
yeah, he's getting older, and I don't know if that's just a career move for him. Right. So it was a really good story type match, but it was pretty long. It was kind of similar to the AJ Knock match in that the point was to do the story at the end. And so this is some of the filler. Like they could have probably knocked off 10 minutes of that match.
Right.
And I already commented on the Castle one. And there were some like those semifinals of the women matches. They probably could have done that on a different show and made intermission less. And I think a lot more people would have been happy with it. The Silas Kenny King match, while it had a really clever finish, went too long. Because it wasn't just the 16 minutes. There was a lot of stuff after the match as well. And they even had a Bully Ray segment with Cheeseburger and the dogs that should have been on TV. Because that felt like it went a half an hour as well.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was just a long show.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve, for your for an insight into the other show that went around New Orleans that weekend. Guys, this was a lot of fun. Well, why don't we wrap it up? I think Alex had vanished, but Nate let him know that he is more than always welcome to return to the main event. And guess what, Nate?
Yes,
we finally get a week.
He had to step out early because it's my illegitimate son is past his bedtime, so he had to step away. But if the listeners want to hear more from him, you can check him out on Twitter at Alex Cruz Nation, And he, like I said in the beginning, he co-hosts Pipe Bomb Radio and Felix Olmedo. So yeah, good job by the rookie tonight.
Yes, and the other rookie, Andy, great job as always. And you will eventually do your own show. I don't know when, but you will.
Yes, I'm working on that.
It's hard to do, Andy.
Yeah. Steve, thank you. I know you're probably completely baked yourself, figuratively, of course. But thank you for coming on, as always. Guess what, Nate? We finally have next week off. We'll be back in 2 weeks for episode 100.
What?
We are not going to tip our hat as to what will happen on that evening.
I'll tell you one thing that's happening on that evening. We're going to run out of football numbers to talk about.
Exactly. We'll have to talk about like memorable moments. Exactly. But next week, you will hear the next installment of Nate's and my 10-part series on our top 100 WWE wrestlers of all time. We will get back to that as well. So that you'll see that episode will come up next week. I believe we're on, what are we on now? Part 5, I think we're on. So check that out next week. PlaceToBeNation.com, your home for everything pop culture. Plenty of WrestleMania post stuff. Plenty of other great stuff. More WWE greatest wrestler post-mortem podcast and articles. So enjoy. For Alex Cruz, Jason Greenhouse, Andy Atherton, Steve Wille, and Nate Milton, The Godfather. I'm Scott Criscolo. You've been in the main event. The weekend's finally over. Go to bed, Steve. You need it. I can tell.
I did forget the most important part of the weekend.
Yes.
I got to take a picture with Andrew Reich.
Aw.
And you didn't say shut up.
Who wants to walk with Willie?
And you didn't say shut up to him either. Have a good 2 weeks.